Now for everyone's favorite game in the series, Riddle School 4. The general story behind this game's creation was that people were requesting a fourth Riddle School game, and the only logical place for a fourth Riddle game to take place would be in college. And so I thought about making Riddle University. The thing about that is, I didn't really want to make another game that was just, escaping a normal school building. Because I'd already done that 3 times. It seemed really redundant by now to do that. This intro, by the way, was just made to be like this because it was easy. It wasn't really meant to be significant in any way at the time. But I also was not in college at the time, and wasn't going to be for a while, so it didn't really make sense to me to make a game about being in college. Because how was I supposed to know, what jokes to make and other stuff like that if I've never been. This room, I seem to recall, the puzzle in this room was going to be, you would get a pencil from the pencil sharpener, and then you would rummage through trash and drag trash out of the way, and then at the bottom there would be, I think it was like a string, and then you would use the pencil and the string together, you would combine them and make a little fishing pole, like a little lasso, and then there would be a crack in this window and there would be something in a bush outside, so you'd use the fishing pole to get something off the bush. And then it might have been like a paper clip, and you would use that to make a complete fishing pole. Then behind this broken tile, it might still be there in the game's files, but there's a grate under the tile, and then it was supposed to be like you use the fishing pole on something in the grate to pick it up. I don't know what it was supposed to be. I don't know, maybe that was part of the reason that I got stuck here, is that I didn't know what was supposed to be at the bottom of the grate. This is the only room that I finished, and the only room that I had any ideas for. I didn't have any plans for a map this big. I just made the map deliberately this big whenever I knew I wasn't going to make any of these rooms. And I also seem to recall, this room shows up again in Riddle School 5, because you have to kill Fred in that one. I remember that because I had a specific idea for how Fred should die, I had to take things out of the room that were already in here to ensure that you didn't think it was something else that you had to do. So I had to remove the pencil from the pencil sharpener in case you thought that maybe you had to stab him. And the same goes for the broken window. I didn't want people to think that you would kill him with broken glass. So there's most of what I had to say about this, I guess. And now let's kill Fred. Or Phil, sorry. Fred comes later. Then his backpack just falls on his desk behind him. Or Diz's desk in this case, back when he was still going to be a foreign exchange student. And you would talk to him and he would have text in a different font, like some alien font. Phil's teacher, Mr. Munch, was the original architect of Riddle University. And of course I'm just pulling this out of the air, like I did basically the entire series. All of it was made up as I went along. Every single episode is a retcon. And my basic idea behind making this ending was that, I already had the room for Riddle University, and people kept requesting another game and I didn't see it happening. So I had the idea to just not make another game where that takes place in a school, and just kill off Phil. I don't know why I keep saying Fred. Sorry. Yeah. Well, this sentence pretty much sums it up. I didn't want people to keep asking questions, and this was kind of a way of shutting people up. Of course, it wasn't going to work, but this was 2 or 3 months before April 1st. Whenever I finally actually did release this game. I was going to release it the moment that I finished this ending, but then people in the forum that I used to go to said that maybe it should be an April Fool's game, and then I thought maybe in that time I could make a bunch more Riddle School games. Maybe I could just make so many Riddle School games that people would just get sick of them and they would make no sense. And I tried to do that, but what ended up happening was, because games take a long time to make, I only ended up finishing one, and that was Riddle School 5. and I just kind of made that one longer and made it the ending to the series. Not the entire series, because then eventually Riddle Transfer happened, which is kind of an extension to the series. But whenever I realized it was going to be an April Fool's release, I wanted to make this game sort of a joke, and that second sentence in the quote there is something that I kind of wish that I didn't have, because I feel like it takes the joke a little bit too far. And this is the longest time that you'll ever see anyone have in this game. But yeah, I think maybe my past self can explain some of this better than I can.
Hey, I'm John Bro, and this is the commentary for the Riddle School 4 ending, because I wanted to balloon the file size and make it look like the same size as Riddle School.
Oh yeah, that was the reason for the commentary that I made here in the first place.
Commentary just because
so that it would be a deceiving file size.
The game, because most of the game is a movie. And I figured I would have to make a commentary better than the one for Pain on the Brain 3, because that one sucked.
Oh yeah, the same friend who was visiting at the time that I made this was the one I made Pain on the Brain 3 with. That commentary did not go well.
And I started one before called Riddle University.
There you go.
But it wasn't going to be very good. I only had planned the first room, which is the one that's seen in Riddle School 4. And I think it was just ripping off of the idea of another game where you had to make a fishing pole out of basic objects like a pencil. And
I think that game was the second game in the Trapped series, which might have been called Pursuit.
So my friend Yoshi Egg came over. He was the other voice in the Pain on the Brain 3 commentary, and I said, I'm going to make Riddle School 4 tonight. And he's like, all right. So I started.
And I gave him a few choices about how Phil should die.
I started animating Phil falling to his death in a lava pit.
He picked Lava Pit.
He could have died, but we figured that was the funniest and the easiest to make. And one of my computers is a flash computer, and one of them is an internet computer.
No longer true. They're the same computer now.
Between the two. So I went to Yoshi Egg, who was on the internet computer playing RuneScape, and I said, hey, can I use the computer for a second? I need to find some sad music for when Phil dies. It was funny. He said I could never imitate exactly how I sounded whenever I said that, but I tried, so...
Yeah, did a pretty good job, I guess.
This game was born, mostly this movie, and we laughed our heads off watching the ending. Well,
it's not even much of a movie, because most of it is credits.
The real reason I made this game was because I wanted to see the reaction on Newgrounds.
And people did not react well. I expected that.
I wasn't picturing at all that I would ever make something like this.
The funny thing is that people reacted really badly whenever this first was released on April 1st. But then, on April 2nd, and afterwards, when Riddle School 5 came out, most people started really liking Riddle School 4. It's like all of a sudden, because it has significance to the story, everyone thought, wow, this is great! Which is something I did not expect. And I beat the game in 0 seconds, because that's sort of a bug by going into the special features and watching the ending, but I don't really care. Another thing that I want to point out, special features, what happened to all the characters. I don't consider any of these canon. Like, all these explanations of how the characters died, I don't consider any of them canon. I just consider them how the characters died in their dreams, in like the dream sequence fed to them by the aliens in Riddle School 5. So, it is just a coincidence what happens in this sentence with Smiley. Like, it's funny how that ties into the end of Riddle Transfer 2, but it's not, like, it wasn't intentional. It's just kind of cool, I guess. And then one more thing, like, this drawing here, I ended up putting this in Riddle School 5, and it's actually significant to a puzzle. I'm not sure if I made this first, or if I made the puzzle in Riddle School 5 first and then added it here. But either way, this is the best one. Killed Phil, now what? Yeah, and I'm pretty sure most of these features I made after I decided to release the game on April 1st, which is part of the reason why Like, this says, I'm certain I won't make any more, and that's kind of just ragging on the fact that I was going to release a game the next day. Because Riddle School 5 was released on April 2nd. So I think that's it. I just managed to make a 10-minute video about a 2-second game. So I'll see you in the next one.